Reading for years 3 and 4. This is week 8 and this is lesson 4. Good morning, everybody. Today's lesson focus. We will read chapter 10 of Fantastic Mr. Fox. You will then complete a Vipers activity at the end of the lesson. Your learning objective today is to develop inferencing skills based on a text. And your success criteria? I can infer by asking questions. I can also answer these questions independently. And I can even justify my answers using evidence from the text. We will now take a look at some of the vocabulary from today's text that we will be reading. And our first word is wearily. What does this mean? Any ideas? So wearily is with extreme tiredness. And a sentence example. I wiped my eyes wearily and yawned as I tried to stay awake. Shriek. What does shriek mean? Shriek is to make a high-pitched screeching sound. And a sentence example. As soon as I saw the mouse, I began to shriek loudly. Prancing. What does prancing mean? Prancing is to walk in an energetic way and with more movement than necessary. An example, the horses were prancing in the field. Our next word is scrambled. What does scrambled mean? Scramble, to move or climb quickly but with difficulty, often using your hands to help you. And a sentence example. She scrambled up the steep hillside and over the rocks. And our final word is plump. What does plump mean? So plump is having a soft, rounded shape and slightly fat. And a sentence example. The berries are plump and juicy. We are now ready to read chapter 10. Boggis's Chicken House number 1. This time we must go in a very special direction, said Mr. Fox, pointing sideways and downward. So he and his 4 children started to dig once again. The work went much more slowly now, yet they kept at it with great courage, and little by little the tunnel began to grow. Dad, I wish you would tell us where we are going, said one of the children. I dare not do that, said Mr. Fox, because this place I am hoping to get to is so marvellous that if I described it to you now, you'd go crazy with excitement. And then if we fail to get there, which is very possible, you would die of disappointment. I don't want to raise your hopes too much, my darlings. For a long, long time they kept on digging. For how long they did not know, because there were no days and no nights down there in the murky tunnel. But at last Mr. Fox gave the order to stop. I think, he said, we had better take a peep upstairs now and see where we are. I know where I want to be, but I can't possibly be sure we're anywhere near it. Slowly, wearily, the foxes began to slope the tunnel up towards the surface. Up and up it went, until suddenly they came to something hard above their heads, and they couldn't go up any further. Mr. Fox reached up to examine this hard thing. It's wood, he whispered. Wooden planks. What does that mean, Dad? It means, unless I'm very much mistaken, that we are right underneath somebody's house, whispered Mr. Fox. Be very quiet now while I take a peek. Carefully, Mr. Fox began pushing up one of the floorboards. The board creaked most terribly, and they all ducked down, waited for something awful to happen. Nothing did. So Mr. Fox pushed up a second board, and then, very, very cautiously, he poked his head up through the gap. He let out a shriek of excitement. "I've done it!" he yelled. "I've done it the first time. I've done it! I've done it!" He pulled himself up through the gap in the floor and started prancing and dancing with joy. "Come on up," he sang out. "Come up and see where you are, my darlings. What a sight for a hungry fox! Hallelujah! Hooray! Hooray!" The four small foxes scrambled up out of the tunnel, and what a fantastic sight it was that now met their eyes. They were in a huge shed, and the whole place was teeming with chickens. There were white chickens and brown chickens and black chickens by the thousand. "Fox's chicken house number one," cried Mr. Fox. "It's exactly what I was aiming at. I hit it slap in the middle first time. Isn't that fantastic? And if I may say so, rather clever." The small foxes went wild with excitement. They started running around in all directions, chasing the stupid chickens. "Wait," ordered Mr. Fox. "Don't lose your heads. Stand back. Calm down. Let's do this properly. First of all, everyone have a drink of water." They all ran over to the chicken's drinking trough and lapped up the lovely cool water. Then Mr. Fox chose 3 of the plumpest hens, and with a clever flick of his jaws, he killed them instantly. "Back to the tunnel," he ordered. "Come on. No fooling around. The quicker you move, the quicker you shall have something to eat." One after another, they climbed down through the hole in the floor, and soon they were all standing once again in the dark tunnel. Mr. Fox reached up and pulled the floorboards back into place. He did this with great care. He did it so that no one could tell they had ever been moved. "My son," he said, giving the 3 plump hens to the biggest of his 4 small children, "run back with these to your mother. Tell her to prepare a feast. Tell her the rest of us will be along in a jiffy, as soon as we have made a few other little arrangements." Right, so you are now ready to complete your learning activity, your Vipers focus. And I will run through these with you. So V for vocabulary. What word means definitely? What does wearily mean? We talked about this earlier. Define plump. What does plump mean? I for infer. How many days have the farmers been waiting? Why do you think Mr. Fox doesn't tell the children where they are going? Why do you think Mr. Fox was cautious about sticking his head through the gap? And why do you think Mr. Fox chooses the plumpest chicken? Why aren't the foxes caught in the chicken house? P for predict. Predict what you think will happen in chapter 11. E for explain. Explain why you think Darryl doesn't tell us Mr. Fox's plan. R for retrieve. Why does Mr. Fox assume his plan won't work? And why won't Mrs. Fox be much help? Where do the foxes dig? S for summarise. Summarise the events of these 2 chapters in less than 30 words. So this is chapter 9 and 10. We read chapter 9 yesterday and chapter 10 today. See if you can summarise the events in less than 30 words. And today's plenary. Can you draw a picture to show what happened in chapter 10? Reflection. How well have you done today? Did you achieve all your success criteria? Great work today. Well done, everybody.